We're in a knife fight with Russia and China and Iran. Putin has reneged on every promise that he's made to President Trump. His latest proposal is, well, nothing. He wants to keep all the territory that he's taken. He wants to prohibit Ukraine from joining NATO, and he wants America and Europe to stop helping Ukraine. I think that Putin thinks that America has taken the bullet train to Chunktown. I think he thinks we're afraid of him. He has jacked around President Trump at every turn. I don't think it's going to get any better until we make it clear to Mr. Putin that we are willing to turn him and his country into fish food. And I'm not talking about nuclear weapons or nuclear war. I would start with oil.
I'm unaware of any promises made by President Putin other than to comply with Trump's wishes in giving peace a chance. He was always willing to halt operations if, in fact, the Ukrainians halted them. He has always been willing to sit down and talk to the Ukrainians. Remember, he was willing to negotiate with them and bring an end to the conflict in April in Istanbul in 2022. I don't know what the man's talking about. This sounds like neocon propaganda. It's kind of interesting. The left, when you hear it from Democrats, keep in mind, the Democrats were permanent apologists for Stalin and the Soviet system for decades. I grew up with that. They were always apologizing and trying to justify the horrors of communism in the Soviet state. They were in the front line to attack Goldwater, Reagan, Nixon, everyone who was fundamentally anti-Soviet and anti-communist. Now, all of a sudden, they've decided there's something positive and good about this strange character, Zelensky, who's really originally born in Russia and speaks Russian and is by no means a true Ukrainian. But beyond that, they seem to think he is morally superior. And we know from the heinous crimes committed by the Ukrainians against the Russian civil population, against their soldiers, nothing could be further from the truth. I don't know why he's decided to do this. Maybe this is his way of supporting, or he thinks he's supporting President Trump. And the notion that you're gonna hurt the Russians in connection with oil is almost laughable. I don't know where he gets that. I guess he's not aware of the oil production capacity in Russia, nor is he aware of BRICS and all the other nations in the world that are quite happy to do business with Russia, most of whom are not very happy to do business with us anymore, thanks to the terrible tariffs that have been imposed. So I don't know what the man is talking about. He's a strange duck, and maybe that appeals to his electorate. There are lots of people in lots of states that like to talk in bellicose terms. I can't conceive of anything more damaging, more destructive than engaging in a conventional war, a high-end conventional war with Russia. This man's obviously learned nothing from what's happened in Ukraine, because what's happened in Ukraine is a modest example of what could be done to us in Europe. We still have troops in Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Romania, probably in Moldova. I don't know. If he thinks they somehow or another could put up effective defenses against the Russians in an all-out assault by a nation, quite frankly, that's ready to go to total mobilization. Russia is only a few steps away from complete mobilization and total war. We are ages away from that, and he doesn't seem to understand it. He doesn't understand that our stocks of munitions, of precision-guided munitions, all of those things are at an all-time low. They are ready to fight. We are not.
Yeah, and then in fact, that's one of the things that in one of his second comment there that he, I think, inadvertently actually is accurate, but he says it as though it's some avoidable choice. He said, but when we're wanting to give them everything, we're going to give them land, we're going to give them no NATO, we're going to give them demilitarization, denazification, all those kind of things that were part of that deal. And he's like, he just wants it all. This is the way he put it there. And I was thinking as I'm listening to it, I'm going, because he can take it all.
Well, maybe, but I think the larger issue for Senator Kennedy is he should be a lot more concerned about the survival of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid financially in this country. He, along with his colleagues, have presided over this massive fiat explosion of cash and money, inflation. We are on the cliff's edge of going over into financial ruin. That's where he ought to be focused, not telling us that we should be prepared to go to war 7,000 miles away from our home in a country that is of no strategic importance to us and never has been, against another country that frankly is not our enemy. This business of a knife fight with Russia and China is nonsense. Our disputes with the Chinese are largely economic, and the Chinese are willing to talk to us. But if we decide to carry the fight to China, we'll end up fighting over some ridiculous place like Taiwan and losing, because in both cases, you're fighting the enemy on the enemy's grounds. Where does Russia have an advantage? In Eastern Europe. Where does China have an advantage? In Asia. This is stupid. This is monumentally stupid. And there's no excuse for it, except that I guess that goes down well with the folks back home.
But where does this I guess this arrogance and this confidence, which he says will turn Russia into fish food. Number one, I don't even know what that means. But number two, but where is the arrogance that he thinks that that Trump can just make some choices and is just going to hammer Russia in abject ignoring everything that happened in the last 3+ years?
Well, arrogance benefits enormously from ignorance. And this man has no idea what kind of world we live in today. He is stuck in 1991. He seems to think that Russia is what John McCain described. You know, oil, it's a large nation with forces, but it's big, essentially an oversized gas station. We all have listened to the deprecating remarks from people like this senator about Russia, all of which have turned out to be fundamentally false and inaccurate. I just don't think he lives in the real world. But then again, when you cross the river into Washington, it's really a great deal like Versailles before the revolution in 1789. Everyone was at that point was living in the same kind of fictional world. France was the great superpower. France had the biggest army. France had this, France had that. It had all these successful businesses in the middle class. And then they woke up to complete and utter financial disaster and revolution. And part of which was due to overextension overseas and wars. At that time, principally commitment to us during the revolution. I don't think this man has any feel for any of those things. He obviously knows how to get elected in Louisiana. Congratulations. But he certainly doesn't understand the world he lives in beyond the borders of the United States.
Yeah, and that is the real problem. Now, on the positive side here, we do have President Trump, who yesterday reiterated his desire to bring this whole thing to a close.
We want him to stop shooting, sit down, and sign a deal. And we have the confines of a deal, I believe. And I want him to sign it and be done with it and just go back to life.
What punitive action are you considering taking against Russia?
Well, I have a lot of things I can do. I'm not looking to do it, but I have a lot of strength.
But does he have a lot of leverage if he wanted to use it against Russia?
Well, I suppose what little strength we have left at this point could be squandered in a conflict with the Russians. I'm worried about seeing it squandered in the Middle East in a conflict with Iran. This is ridiculous. First of all, what he thinks is only 50% of the issue, maybe not even that. I mean, quite frankly, go back to what we were saying earlier. Where's the strategic interest? Let's not talk in stupid terms and say, well, we believe in democracy and freedom. Okay, fine. Happy to hear that. Half the countries in the world we do business with don't know how to spell freedom or democracy. We have good relations with many countries that most Americans would look at and say, these are authoritarian states. They're by no means republics. So this notion that we have to defend the democracy in Ukraine is absurd. Ukraine is a dictatorship. There's nothing democratic about it. Hasn't been for a long time. So what is the interest in Ukraine? It's not rare earths. They don't have enough to make any damn difference. The one thing they have is agriculture. They have a huge breadbasket. It would be nice to see the war end so that they came back to growing food, which is essential to the rest of the country, the rest of the world. But I think he also needs to keep in mind that while we've been talking and complaining, Putin has given away 30,000 tons of grain to the people in Gaza. What's Senator Kennedy's plan for the people in Gaza? Would he like to gas them? Does he want to shoot them, bomb them? Because that apparently is what the Israeli lobby wants him to do. I don't know. But this whole problem with Gaza seems to have been swept under the rug, as though 2 million lives are completely irrelevant. Now, that's music to Mr. Netanyahu's ears, but is that really the way we Americans want to think about it? I don't think so. So I don't know what this man, Kennedy, is talking about. He's filtering a lot of nonsense from the White House, repeating it, things that Waltz makes up. At the end of the day, frankly, unless we want to go to war over Western Ukraine, there's not a hell of a lot we can do. What we should be interested in doing is facilitating an end to the conflict. That means bringing pressure about on our friend Zelensky, even if it means removing him. You're not going to pressure the Russians. They will not be pressured. If we haven't figured that out yet, we are very stupid.